What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Lamont's Jam and Custom Night Show, the number 3 podcast. I have a couple of things to talk about today, but before I get started, let me just reference next week the SEC softball tournament starts. I think it starts on Tuesday. And you have the usual suspects in the top 4, Oklahoma, Texas, Alabama, and Florida. And I think probably don't play till Thursday or Friday or something like that. But everybody else starts on Tuesday. And you know me, and you know my love of college softball. Big fan of it. It's one of the few sports in college now that is watchable and legit. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to, my loyalties lie with Alabama, but I support all of the SEC girls softball teams. I support all of college softball, period, to be honest with you. But my favorites and my loyalty lies in the SEC and Alabama, so it is what it is. Next, in the news of the day, and I mean on every channel you turn on, and listen, I'm a dinosaur. I still watch TV. And I probably will continue to watch it as long as it's available or until the day I die. But every news station you turn on is dealing with Spirit Airlines. Now, I'm going to tell you how much that means to me. It means about much to me as the price of antelope in Nairobi. We don't care. I know a lot of people do care. A lot of people still fly. But I don't. When I left the military, my days of flying and sailing were over. And this is something I don't do. I don't fly, I don't sail. I might get on the boat to go fishing, but that's about it. And who's to say, maybe one day I will get on a ship or whatever, but as far as flying, nah. You can leave me out of that. But speaking of that, a friend of mine, one of my co-workers, he used to work for Honeywell. Now, if you know anything about Honeywell, it's like White House and General Dynamics and Lockheed Martin. These are huge military contractors. Huge. When I was in Virginia, General Dynamics in Virginia Beach and Norfolk, that area up there, everything, General Dynamics. And they pretty much, did the ships, the submarines, all that crap for the United States Navy. Everything's General Dynamics. Where I live at now, Anniston Army Depot is right there. General Dynamics, everywhere. They do the tanks and the Humvees and all that type of stuff over there. But nevertheless, my friend, he worked for Honeywell. They got laid off or their jobs moved to Arizona or something like that. So he had to get another position, so he got on with the state of Alabama. But he showed me something that was just impossible to believe, but it's true. So what he did at Honeywell, they were manufactured or put together components, very important components to aircraft, whether it be a civilian aircraft, commercial aircraft, or military aircraft. And the parts and components they made and put together, they gave him an app, and he pulled the app up on his phone. And there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of airplanes in there at one time. Totally blew my mind. There is much air traffic as there is road traffic, damn near. So he just randomly picked any plane, whether it was over North Africa or Australia. He just picked the aircraft. And as it's in the air in real time. And once you push the aircraft, It'll give you the history. And he told me 75 to 90% of the aircraft at that moment that was in the air, he at one point had something to do with the components of those aircraft. So it just blew my mind. So I'm like, you telling me that the hundreds of thousands of airplanes that are in the sky right now, you at one point had your hands on the components? Absolute fact. Not only did it gave you the history of everything about the aircraft, and I'm like, that's something I've never seen, and it blew my mind. Think about this. Think about if you in the car industry, and they give you an app. You know, you work at Honda or GM or Ford or someone like that. They give you a map. So it's millions and millions of cars on the road. But you go to, let's just say, Coontuck, Kentucky. Just punch in the car in Coontuck, Kentucky. It gonna give you the history of that car. Where was manufactured? Who did the brakes? Who did this? Who did that? And even on that scale, because see, I'm dumbing it down to vehicles, not aircraft. Even that scenario blew my mind. It ain't nowhere in the world you can go without being tracked. There ain't nothing you can get in or on that can't be tracked. So that's incredible. But to be honest with you, I can honestly say I damn near seen it all now when I saw that. But let's get into the main topic of this podcast. And I'm going to try to keep it somewhat brief. Don't want to bore you guys. So, an associate of mine, we sit and talk for a while, a couple of days this past week. And he's in a business in Atlanta that he deals with a lot of people. He deals with a lot of celebrities. And the people that he has to come in contact with are mainly in the hip-hop industry, the music industry, the entertainment industry in general, athletes, etc. Matter of fact, he talked about Cam Newton, Ed Reed, and a couple of folks this past week when I talked to him. And he, I'm like, okay, you're basically doing what I've done for 16, 17 years, even though I was in law enforcement, this guy's in security. Do you have to deal with a lot of knuckleheads? And I knew the answer when I asked the question, but he just basically, put a bow on it for me. It's not really the entertainers, the celebrities that you have to deal with in a negative manner. It's primarily the entourage. And I don't care if you a low-level celebrity dude or a high-level celebrity dude. You're going to have groupies. You're going to have somebody who wants to put their little 2 cents in, get a piece of the pie. I'm rolling with a big dog. You can be absolute garbage. You go on a show or a podcast and you say, yeah, I'm associated with so-and-so. That's my dog. That's my Negro. These groupies and entourages, man. And according to him, they pretty much make all the noise, and they're the ones they have to deal with. But I asked him because he rolls through my area, which, the area I work in is pretty secluded, really no noise, just a bunch of country folks going to work, coming home, living their life, enjoying life. When he crossed that border into Georgia, you go through Carrollton, Douglasville, you get through Atlanta. And he says primarily, Carrollton is somewhat of a, large sized town. But on the scale of Atlanta, it's small town. But, he said, you see a lot of things going through Carrollton, a lot of things going through Douglasville. A lot of the actors, entertainers, and people who make their money in the city of Atlanta, lives in Douglasville, lives in Carrollton, just commutes. But I asked him, I was like, you know, you come through this small area and everything is just, you know, you have your trees, your squirrels, your possums. You know, there's really nothing loud here. And I love it. Even though I work there, I just love it. Where I live at is even better. But I was like, how in your mind, how does it change? Because once you leave, you know, this nice secluded area and get into the zoo, which I call Atlanta the zoo, and it is, I was like, you have to almost put on an act, become a different person. He said, yeah, that's true. Because when you going into this city, he goes every day. I think his location's over there by the airport, which is, if I'm not mistaken, the racetrack, the airport, that's far off in Atlanta, but it's still part of Metro Atlanta. He said you come in contact with so many people, excuse me, that yeah, you have to put on another face. You have to have an alternative identity. Because you're going to come into contact with people with a lot of money who think they are somebody. You're going to come in contact with those who want to be somebody. See, so yeah, you have to change who you are. And for me, I had to do that for a while. But that's not who I am. That's why I don't do it anymore. You know, I'm not changing for nobody. I'm not putting on a different face. This is my ugly mug, and I'm going to keep it for the rest of my life. You know, who I am, I'm not changing for. But, you know, this is not about me. It's about him. And, you know, when I first met the cat, you know, I just said 2 words to him. He just said 2 words to me. And it was like that for a long time. And all of a sudden, he got hurt in an accident. So I made a comment, you know, damn, man. You know, it must be tough, you know. And he said, yeah, I'm one of the toughest dudes in North Atlanta. And he said, now I can't even use my legs. You know, he's recovered since then. But now we talk on a regular basis. And he's a cool dude, you know. But he wears who he is. You know, he's covered with tattoos. You know, clean cut. Very professional cut. But, you know, I think he looked like he, you know, was a former MMA fighter or UFC fighter or something like that. But now he has to deal with a lot of celebrities and the public in a security manner, you know. So, but I enjoyed talking to the cat. But he said, you know, one of the, and this shocked me when he said this, one of the few people that he has to deal with on a regular basis. And he didn't call him a scumbag, but he was like, he's, you know, a piece of shit. And that was Cam Newton. And that shocked me. You know, Cam Newton is who he is. He tries to be bigger than life, flamboyant, you know, the hats, the hairdos, etc. But I didn't think that Cam Newton personally, the person Cam Newton would be as he described it, you know. The other guy he mentioned, you know, quite frequently was Ed Reed. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Ed Reed played DB for the Baltimore Ravens. I want to say, yeah, he played in the NFL. But he was like, this dude is one of the coolest cats I come across on a daily basis. You know, Ed Reed's a millionaire, made a lot of money, but he said he's just a normal cat. He's just a normal Joe, man. You know, he don't try to be anything that he's not. And that shocked me because, you know, if I could, you know, Ed Reed and them guys played in the early to mid 2000s in Baltimore, and they were beasts. They were monsters. And I looked at Ed Reed like, you know what, on the football field, this guy's a monster. Probably in real life, he's a beast. Somebody you really don't want to tie up with. But he's a little bitty dude, but he's just cool, you know. So the person I thought would be an asshole in real life he says the coolest cat you want to meet. Somebody I thought would be one of the coolest cats you want to meet in real life, he says an asshole in Cam Newton. So that shocked me a little bit, but You know, this guy comes across a lot of people, a lot of celebrities, a lot of people on a daily basis, and that just shocked the hell out of me. But you know, personally, I try to stay away from, you know, since I'm away from the law enforcement game, I try to stay away from the celebrities and the entourages because they're nothing but trouble, nothing but trouble. But you know, I'm gonna wrap this up. Don't want to get off into a tangent today, and that's pretty much about it, man. I had an interesting week. It was a tiring week. It was a painful week as far as my physical, but um, you know, it's part of life. You know, and like one cat said, you know, it's better to feel a little pain above ground than to feel no pain below it. So that's what that's how I feel. But anyway, listen, I love you and I appreciate you. And in the name of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, you guys stay blessed and keep Him number one. And I'll catch you next time.